Are you an overwhelmed SaaS founder ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where revolutionizing healthcare SaaS isn't just about better software. It's about earning trust, surviving procurement, and proving your product saves more than just a little time. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. What does it really take to build and scale SaaS companies inside one of the slowest, most regulated industries on the planet? Yeah, healthcare isn't just complex. It's layered with skepticism, endless sales cycles, budget hurdles, and legacy processes that somehow still run on paper and the occasional fax. Yeah, I said the F word, fax. Well, in this episode, we unpack what it looks like to move from investor to operator in healthcare tech and why solving real, painful problems beats chasing shiny innovation every single time. You'll hear how identifying gaps in quality, transparency, and operational efficiencies led to multiple spinoffs, each of those born from a specific validated need inside hospitals. From digitizing environmental protocols to automating birth registration workflows, this conversation dives into what happens when you replace paper-heavy chaos with measurable efficiency. We'll also get candid about the products that didn't work, because not all of them do, and why early validation, real pilots, and distinguishing between wants and true needs can save founders from expensive mistakes. You'll hear practical insights on navigating, say, a 12 to 18-month enterprise sales cycle, building trust in skeptical markets, and hiring sales teams with the right domain credibility to open doors that cold outreach never will. And of course, as healthcare continues its shift from paper to digital to AI-assisted workflows, we explore what's next, how automation, robotics, and smarter documentation can remove low-value tasks from clinicians and refocus energy where they really want to spend it anyway. If you're building a SaaS in a complex, regulated space, I am, or considering it, this episode offers a grounded, real-world look at what it takes to win where speed isn't optional, but patience is mandatory. Let's dive in. Our expert guest last Thursday was Damp, Mike Damphouse, co-founder of Category Design Advisors and co-author of the Category Creation Formula. And if you don't have your copy yet, you should absolutely pick one up. I'm about halfway through the book, and it is absolute gold. So Damp was with us, and he challenged founders to stop competing in crowded markets and start creating their own. That's what category design is all about. He broke down why positioning isn't enough, how category leaders define the problem before selling their solution, and the simple framework behind building markets that last. If you're tired of being compared, Damp gave you a way to have a blueprint to become the standard. And our founder last week was Drew Seacrest, Salesforce's 36th employee and now CEO of Connect the Dots. Drew reminded us that relationships still win, absolutely win above everything else, especially in a world flooded with AI outreach. From scaling Salesforce past $1 billion to building a platform that maps warm introduction paths, Drew showed how a go-to-network strategy can outperform cold pipelines, and not by a little bit, by leaps and bounds. My big takeaway, your network isn't a contact list. It is absolute growth leverage. If you missed either one of those episodes, go back and check them out. My guest today is Alan Cooper, co-founder and CEO of ReadyList, a mobile-first platform transforming how hospitals' support teams operate. Alan didn't just stumble into healthcare tech. He stepped into it after seeing firsthand how much of hospital operations still relied on paper, manual processes, and disconnected systems, and sometimes even fax. Yep, The F word, facts. Well, Ready List began with a simple but urgent need: move environmental services off paper and into a digital system that guides staff through best practice cleaning and room prep protocols. And the result? Cleaner facilities, safer environments, and measurable improvements in hospital operations. Pretty cool. Welcome someone who's building practical software in a space where mistakes are costly and the impact is real. Alan Cooper. Hey, Alan, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me on.
Let's start at the beginning. What first drew you into the healthcare tech space? And then how did Ancilla Ventures come to life?
Yeah, great question. It was actually, I was pre-founder actually of Ancilla, where I was more of an investor. And I actually had a colleague of mine that approached me as a kind of a working capital partner. And I was going through my whole MBA and program, trying to figure out what do I want to do and all that fun stuff. And at the end of the day, through that journey, I actually started to get excited about trying to do something on my own. And instead of just jumping on my own, I actually decided to join, and it was called Ancilla Partners at the time, as a partner that kind of focused on healthcare quality and metrics. So it was one of my partners at the time that actually had a client that needed the ability to ingest quality metric or quality data from hospitals and the like to produce quality metrics. And I just found it fascinating to, especially it was like 18 years ago, that it was fascinating to be able to shed light on the outcomes of healthcare quality, because at that time it was definitely not as transparent as it is today. I basically bridged the gap with something very interesting with an interest of actually being an entrepreneur.
Love that. And 2 decades in building solutions for hospitals. Or what were some of the early pain points you saw in healthcare that others maybe overlooked?
Honestly, transparency, it was probably the biggest thing. I think back, it was a transparency, and then either underusage or overusage. And I think back then it was probably more overusage than it was underusage. And what I mean by that is, I think healthcare plans at that point were definitely more tailored towards low deductibles, I'd say a decent premium. And what that kind of did is condition the patient to be able to probably overuse the health system in general, because they didn't have to pay out of pocket as much. Right. And I think what we've seen, and everyone in society have seen this, is that is a major shift to that, because it was putting too much of the cost to the health plans and then even the health system, where it just wasn't a very balanced approach of how healthcare should be managed from a cost perspective. What we've noticed is that started to shift. And the other thing that started to shift is the medical plans and the like are like, if we're going to go down this path of high deductible, I want to make sure that we actually bring on and partner with health systems or even providers that actually recognize the high quality of it, instead of treating patients unnecessarily that could be done at just a normal visit. Some of the patients would actually go to the ED, emergency room, and triage a situation that could easily have been done on just meeting with your provider to try to manage that cost. And then you got the quality aspects of it, and trying to marry up both of those worlds is where I've seen a lot of the shift, is making sure you have quality care, but it's at an affordable price. I still think we have a lot of work to go there, to be honest with you. I don't think we're there. I do think putting it back on the patients is probably the long-term better play, but not to the point where you're breaking the patient too, because then you're going to create bad habits there. So it's definitely, I've seen the shift. I'm not exactly sure where we are, where we should be. I'm hopeful that they don't completely put the burden on the patient, because that's not exactly right either. So I think a lot of things are going on here.
Yes. And Ready List was one of the things that kind of emerged out of your experience in quality. What was the aha moment that led you to spin that off as its own company?
Yeah, so that one was formed because we basically, our intent as Ancilla was to try to either internally generate new ideas for products or partner with someone else that had an idea that we could actually produce. So we actually partnered with someone out in the West Coast that he was part of opening up a new hospital, and one of their missions is to eliminate paper and try to maximize technology out there to service the patients. And one of the spaces that he was focused on was the environmental services area. And what he noticed on the other hospitals that was part of the health system is a lot of what they were doing was paper-based in terms of what's the schedule, what do they have to do, and then also what are the protocols that's on paper. Everything was just generating paper, and he wanted to get away from that. So he approached us and said, would you entertain building a product that could satisfy this need? And so we decided to do that. And then we right away decided to spin it off as its own company and kind of operate as like a SaaS model, where we can then open that up for other hospitals to be able to participate as a subscription model.
I like that.
Yeah.
And another company inside of that or product, VR90, completely different pain point, birth registration. How does an opportunity like that show up on your radar?
So that was an interesting one. So that was an internal one that we built, and it was stemmed from a product called peridata.net, which is a birth registry. And Wisconsin Association of Perinatal Care actually owns the perinatal.net registration, and we manage it for them and enhance it and the like. And it's really good for be able to manage your outcomes and how to actually be able to understand, are we treating our patients appropriately during the experience of a birth, right? So pre, during, post, and be able to evaluate what could be done better. And this registry is actually more of a private one where you have to, as a hospital, participate into it. And what you gain out of it is the longitudinal value of understanding, if you have many hospitals under your health system, how are we doing across the board of our health system? How can we do better within the health system? So there's not transparency outside of this world, because what we're trying to do is encourage them to be able to work on themselves, to be able to treat the patients better. So that's what we took over and managed that. And then from there is, what we're trying to always do is find ways to make it easier for hospitals to do whatever that is. In this particular case was, how do we get the data into this registry and minimize the amount of overhead and work that's being done by the hospital? So we created a product called VR90 that a patient actually completes after they had their birth. And instead of filling all this stuff, like the paperwork part of it, where then they give the paper to the hospital then takes the paper and puts it into the state, because they have to register for Social Security and their birth certificate. And instead of doing that paper process, they do it on the VR90 using their web mobile app. It's a mobile friendly site where it's all secure, where they go in, enter the information in, and it directly puts it into Peridata. And then Peridata uses a process that we built called RPA, or robotics process automation, that because there is no direct interface to the state, this actually emulates a human doing it, where it takes the data out of Peridata and then ingests it, like in some ways mimics a human and populates it. So what used to take 15 to 20 minutes for a hospital to enter in a given birth takes about 15 to 20 seconds. So we completely streamline that. So if you're a bigger hospital, we have a hospital that probably has 20 to 30 and sometimes 40 births that they have to end per day, that used to take them, I don't know, whatever the math would be, probably a day and a half to do that. It would take them like 40 minutes or 30 minutes to do that same particular item. And what we're trying to do is, like, there's no value for a hospital to do this. Like, they have to do They have to do this because it's something that the state is requiring of them. So what we're trying to do is make it easier for the hospitals to be able to do what's required of them, create an ROI of that, and then gain the benefits of Peridata from a purely quality aspect of it that can help them manage their patients better. So it organically came because of a gap that we saw out there to help the hospitals out save some time.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You built multiple products under Ancilla Ventures, and some really cool ones. And we've talked about some of those, Red List and Peridata you mentioned. What is the biggest lesson in knowing when to spin off something or to fold in new ideas?
Yeah, the spin-off one, at least what we've done a few of them. Like there's another group called Forward Health Group that we spun off because we built a product called Population Manager. And for that instance, as well as Rayless instance, it was always because the idea came from external. And instead of complicate Ancilla by bringing in partners and complicating that corporate structure, we spun it off as an easy way to be able to manage basically the equity share of whatever happens to this particular product. So it was just a better, easier way. And then if we chose to actually want to spin it off as its own and either sell it or whatever we want to do, we have a little more flexibility to do that by having it be its own entity. I try to treat this as an example because I'm running both sides of the coin as Playlist is like extension of Ancilla. Like it's a product that basically Ancilla manages, whether it's the product part of it, engineering, the sales, whatever. Ancilla does it all. It's becoming more and more as a product with that it is its own company, but it's really a product. The Forward Health Group one with Population Manager, that one actually ended up spinning off and it's its own thing. And I'm a shareholder and I don't really do much with it anymore. But that's not what it was when it came that way, but it morphed into that way when you start to get the venture capital and other people's equity that gets into the business. In some ways makes more sense for us to separate in a way that I'm now more of a shareholder than I am controlling anything anymore.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's something you built that completely flopped, and then how did you recover from that?
At the end of the day, we have built a few things that really didn't go anywhere. And I think the lesson learned there is we took someone's idea and frankly an opinion and they built a good story on it and we didn't validate it. We didn't go through the necessary exercise to make sure that the market actually needs something like this and there's a gap in the market. And so we would invest a lot of our time and money into something where we hope that it works. And I think what we have done recently, and when I say recently is like the last 3 to 5 or 6 years, is when we start to do these things like VR90 would be an example of that is we basically try to understand, does the market really need this?
Yeah.
And we would actually pilot it. So we would take something that maybe we're not going to invest all of our eggs in this basket, but we would pilot it. We would get some early adopters on it right away to make sure it actually works the way that we think it is, but frankly, they think it should because they're the ones that actually are using the product, or in this case, patients are. But we would partner with some key hospitals to ensure that we got the adoption. We iron out the things that if we didn't have that partnership, we'd be guessing in some ways without actually fully understand that. So I really think partnering with the hospitals in these particular cases or whatever organization that you believe is you're going to help serve and fix a need or enhance a need is like critical. So we did that with VR90 in the front end. We did that in the back end of the RPA where we wanted to make sure that, again, it is something that's going to add value and actually prove it out. But the early ones that kind of flopped, I really believe it flopped because we didn't truly understand that we were fixing something that was, I always look at it as it's got to be something that's really critical and needed. It can't be a want. A want is hard to sell. It's got to be something that
Yes.
is needed and is actually either fixing something or enhancing something, but it has to be something that if you take it away from them, you're going to be giving back a pain point. And I believe if you can't validate that and you're hoping it does, I think you might get lucky. I think it's luck out there too. But if you want to be more methodical about it and minimize your risk and spending too much resources, I think attempting to validate it by partnering up with a potential prospect that in some ways give it away free for a little bit, pilot it, allow them to iron it out as long as there's no risk on their end and it's low risk on your end. You do have to put something into it to make sure that it works. But I think piloting it or partnering up is so critical on anything you're to bring out to the market. Don't rely on someone's opinion and idea and hope that it works because especially if you're not an industry person, like if you're coming in there with someone coming in with industry experience, but you don't have it, you're building a lot of faith that what they're saying is actually going to happen. Where we're, at least on some of the products we've been doing lately, I feel like we know the market better than I guess we did 18 years ago or 15 years ago, where we feel a little bit like we can hedge our bets a little bit better. But even still, we still partner with them because frankly, I'm a little fatigued, to be honest with you, of casting it out there and hoping for the best. And it's burned us too many times where we can
Yeah.
spend our resources in better ways.
Oh, it's really smart. You said so much in there. Luck counts, but you can't count on luck. And just because a founder thinks it's a good idea or I think it's a good idea doesn't mean that the market is going to buy it and think it's a good idea.
And
That's a
timing.
really tough one.
Yeah, and I think timing is also a factor too, because again, these are things that I think both you and I probably experienced and learned is like it may be like bad timing because of either the market's not in the spot where it could thrive. The government is a factor too, where you just don't know, like a government decision or law could help you or hurt you, right?
Yes.
So understanding the landscape of what's around you that could impact your product or your idea is definitely something you can't minimize.
Oh, that's really big. And that's a tough place to be when a single law could legislate you out of business overnight. And really thinking about what is that risk? What's the likelihood that something is going to change in the regulatory landscape that either makes this a must-have or eliminates the need for it?
Yep. No, exactly. Yeah. Like our product has that risk in theory because it could, in fact, we had a little bit of risk this summer that the state is actually rolling out a new product that I was like, oh my God, are they going to offer something that we are offering because of their current systems gap? And thankfully, right or wrong, depending on how you look at it, even the new product is still going to have that gap. So for me, okay, good. Now, frankly, if it did take it away, if the hospital is served better, then whatever serves better for the hospital, so be it. There's other states that might have this issue too, but you don't know. You really don't know. And keeping your pulse on all the stakeholders around, right? Everyone could potentially have a factor in a positive or a challenging way.
Yeah. Sales cycles in healthcare are notoriously long, sometimes 12, 18 months. How do you stay motivated and strategic with timelines like that? And what have you done to compress that sales cycle and get solutions in people's hands much faster?
Oh, it depends on the product, right? To be honest with you. So I'm definitely experienced that with each of the products. So Raylist is definitely on the longer side because I think it ends up having more of a capital expenditure kind of point of view, even though it's a SaaS model. And in theory, it's not a capital thing. It's more of an operating expense. Each hospital treats it differently. So It's like whatever way they handle the situation is that's where dictated. So that one, because of just the price point, is notoriously a longer life cycle. And then the other thing that is interesting, that this is probably not so unique in hospitals, but their fiscal years are all over the place. Like they're not always calendar. In fact, I think most are not calendar. And they're either like July is their next fiscal or whatever. So trying to get ahead of that too, you may think that, oh, we have this particular hospital locked and loaded because they love it and all that stuff. And then we just missed the budget. We got to re-up it for next year. That literally delays it another year.
Wow.
So anyway, so for A-List, that's always been a little bit of a tricky situation. For VR90, because it's a lower price point, typically I can get it underneath their operating expense within their departmental budget. And what I try to do to expedite them to use it faster than delaying it 6 months is I've been doing this for the last probably 4 or 5 months, is telling them to pilot it for a month to see if there's value. And if they pilot it for a month, we train them up. It doesn't take much time for us to train them up. And then we'd say, if it works for you, great. Let's see if we can get in. If it doesn't work for you, at least you didn't spend $1. You spent some of your time to do it, but you didn't have to spend any dollars to make it happen. And I found that the piloting a no-cost pilot, especially on a situation that you're going to fix a gap that they have, like we know there's a gap. really helps them feel comfortable with the product, with us. Like, even though we work with them on Perry data, the registry, they don't technically work us in the same way. This other product really helps understand who we are as a partner, and either they want to work with us or not. And I find that the trust just goes skyrocketed when the pilot happens. It works well. They're happy with our support because we're so client centric, like almost to the fault where I feel like, are we almost too much? But I feel like, honestly, like that'll pay dividends down the line,
It
really
does.
serving the client in a level that is expeditious. And we really just take every of those things seriously, and hopefully they feel it and they feel that support. Then when things don't always go well, they're a little more empathetic and a little more, have more tolerance, because things aren't always going to work as expected. Some things always happen. Like,
Yes.
they're always out of your control, whether it's AWS or something, like whatever it is, something happens and you're like, and sometimes you're in the mercy of something outside of your control. Really having a strong relationship with your customer and client goes so far of their understanding. And that's why we try to do what we can to delight them and to give them exceptional service.
That's really good. And you're filling a need that really is a need. It's not just a want or a nice to have. And when they get it in there, like they can't imagine the solution being taken away. And
Exactly.
that's very different than a nice to have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and so to the point of the cycle, having a product that I know is a little bit longer, having one that isn't, helps in some ways hedge the cash flow and all the stuff that goes into it, because knowing that the other one's going to take longer. And what we're trying to do is, knowing what's been working with VR90 because it's a smaller dollar item, we're trying to actually see how can we leverage the same concept to also shrink down the 12 to 18 month window by offering leaner products that we know could help them. And what it does is build trust. It allows them at a low entry point, and we can even pilot that too. So we've been also going the same approach to see how, again, to build that trust. So it's not, to me, it's all about trust out there. Like, when you just get bombarded by vendors that you don't know, so see if it's new to
Yes.
them, and I get it all the time, and I'm sure you do as well. It's like, right away, you're just like, don't want it. Like, you don't even know what it is. Like, I don't want it.
Exactly.
It's like, they're like, it's going to fix it. I'm like, yeah, everyone says it's going to fix my world. Like, I don't have time to deal with it. So knowing how it feels, and I know how it feels, like everyone gets those things, I'm trying to find a way to navigate through that to build that trust. So we do a lot of like podcast interviews as an example, to put a human face to words and to hopefully align that with, I think I could probably talk to that person, at least give him
Yeah.
a shot at a conversation. And half of what I'm trying to do is really just get the ability to talk to someone. And I'm not sure I'll fix your problems. Hopefully I will, but maybe what we have isn't going to do anything different for you. And that's okay. We're here to serve those that do have some challenges that we could help out with and partner up and be helpful.
I like that. And I think that's a really good approach for any market, healthcare in particular. And there's probably people listening that go, yeah, my market's like that too. Healthcare, I think of, it's a very tight knit, skeptical market. Trying to get in from the outside is almost impossible. They want to work with insiders, people that they know. And it takes 5 years to build those relationships to even get in. But then once you're in, you can start building that trust. And I like the approach of trying it and really building that relationship with them. So they're experiencing the product, they're experiencing your support, the solution overall. And I think that really builds that trust significantly faster and that long term credibility, like you were saying, because not everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And that's what honestly makes it fun to be in this
Yeah.
space. Is it's challenging, but it definitely feels rewarding when you see you're helping out, especially at the end of the day, we're helping out patients. Like, our end goal is everything we're doing, the byproduct is it's going to help out the patient in some capacity. It's either going to help the provider help the patient, or it's going to directly help the patient. Either way, in the healthcare space, we're just trying to make it better for the patient in some aspects of our experience. So,
Ever notice how every leadership book tells you to take the journey, but none really show you the map? Well, after scaling multiple companies to over 260 million in combined revenue and working with over 1,000 leaders, I discovered the key difference that separates leaders who burn out from those who build unstoppable momentum. It's not strategy, not charisma, it's not even luck. It's relationships, specifically four of them. My new book, The Captain's Keys, reveals the stability matrix, a proven system that transforms leadership from survival into sustainable success. Inside, you'll discover the four critical relationships every leader needs and exactly how to build them. You can get your copy at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore, and it's available in print, ebook, and audio. You don't need another playbook. You just need the right people in your boat. Yeah, that's good. How has your view of sales changed over the years? And maybe what helped you crack the code on hiring the right salesperson for healthcare?
That's a really good question. Similar to what I was discussing a little bit about some of the products that maybe did not go very far, is similar to the lessons learned on the sales as well. As I thought bringing in individuals in sales that kind of knew how to sell SaaS products, or they had experience in technology sales, is all I needed, right? And you can just work with healthcare, and as long as you knew how to sell SaaS type of products, you'd be fine. And the reality is, in my opinion, that's not true. Not that you can't build it, but if you're having a person that you trust that's kind of leading the way, I truly believe they've got to come through healthcare in some aspects of it. They have to live it, breathe in some aspects of it, even if it's not exactly the product we're doing, but they come to the table understanding the life cycle of a sale. They understand who they should be talking to within the hospitals. And then also, again, coming to the table with the relationships already is also, I definitely did not appreciate it until I hired someone that actually had it. And understanding that those connections, as you just stated before, everyone talks to each other. They really do. They may be competitors in theory. They're all trying to service the same thing as the patients themselves. They all want to get better, and they only get better by learning with each other. So they talk, and
True.
it's a good experience. They're going to talk positively. It's not a good experience. They're not going to. Getting a sales individual that is in the network in some ways really goes a long way with that trust. And I think being in that space, I think definitely is the lens that I have. Now, if they're new and their job is to lead gen and to do some of the detailed work, maybe not as critical, because you can then build it up, because eventually you got to build it up somehow. But when you need someone that's seasoned to lead the way, I truly believe you need to, and I don't think this applies just to healthcare. I think having an industry focus, regardless of the industry, definitely will help your sales area a lot better with it than without it. And I think that's even more critical than the technology aspect of it, which I think I thought about it differently. Because I think you can teach someone the technology. They have to be technical savvy, but they don't have to be a technical expert. You have people that on your team that you could leverage during a sales call that's a technical expert.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, having the domain knowledge along with the sales skills really important at a high level. I like that you have an entry point where people can come in and build those skills as well and kind of work into those roles. Is it like you said, they have to learn it somehow?
Yeah, and definitely now that I feel like I have the right person in place, that is my goal in the next year or two, to start bringing in people underneath her so she can start to build their skills up and support them. And then also, just the more you have out there, the more you're able to sell more of. It's just the math of it all.
Culture matters in every kind of startup. How do you build culture that sticks across healthcare and sales and dev teams and other client facing roles?
Yeah, so we had experience where before COVID, we probably, like every other company out there, everyone came into the office, and 99% of the people were based in Milwaukee, where we're from. But then when COVID hit, that kind of changed things a little bit. And that allowed us to explore resources and team members that are not necessarily within the area, which presents a positive and a challenge. So the positive is we may get people that we didn't think we could get has deeper knowledge or deeper skills that don't happen to live around the area, but they can bring a lot to the table and bring a lot of experiences that we may not get locally. The challenge is trying to onboard them, build that culture when they're remote isn't easy. And definitely, I think with the video conferencing type of things going on now, ever since COVID, such a big hit, I think it definitely helps bridge the gap a little bit. However, I don't think you can rely solely on that. Like we've experienced it with some people we brought in that started out remotely, even with video conferencing to try to help build the trust. I think it's still challenging if you don't somehow bring in people and build that trust by just getting them out there and socializing, get them to know each other a little bit deeper than just for surface level from a work perspective. We found that some people that have left that were remote, they just never got that grit. They never got that depth of people. And it's hard to when it's just purely remote. So what we've been doing for the last, call it a year or two is we've come back into a hybrid mode. And last year we're back to remote mode, but now we're going to probably go back to hybrid next year because we're getting a new office. I really think having a foundation, having an office for people to go to, even if they don't go there every single day, in my opinion, is very helpful. I think it helps build that deeper trust. And then we also bring in everyone in for a few days, once a quarter, for us to be together. We'll get into the office. We'll do a dinner and some fun activities that helps break down some of those surface level barriers and really build that trust. And I will tell you, when we have challenges in our work day to day, whatever comes up, we are better able to handle the situations with collective thoughts and less blame and just working the issue. Don't point fingers, just work the issue because we trust each other enough that we got each other's back. And that helps from a culture perspective. And then it helps from a hiring perspective because we only hire people that have that type of sense of team building, collaborative, and it's not about you, it's about us. Try to force that into our culture.
That's really good. I think it's difficult to build completely remote. And so when you have that time together, FaceTime, even if it's once a quarter, once a month, a few times a year even, I think just having that FaceTime and building those relationships is so critical to having the team work together and trust each other. And just the trust is off the charts compared to only remote.
Yeah, and the one thing we did do, and I forgot about mentioning this, but I think we might have been doing this for the last year or so, is since we only try to meet once a quarter, just because that's all we can do at this point, every Thursday we have team social remotely. And what we'll do is we'll have these online games where we can participate as a team. And we just spent an hour together. And we have a lot of fun with these online games working together, whether it's drawing or whatever. There's these fun, quirky little games out there that it's not required that the team joins, but if they want to join, this is a good way to have fun. And when you start to have fun, you break down all these other things and you just are a little bit more relaxed and you're more thoughtful and considerate of your team. And then we've gone so far as we have one person on our team that loves to cook or bake. So during the experience, we've actually had sessions where we're baking something for an hour. So someone gets a recipe and we're all participating in our kitchen and creating Christmas cookies or whatever. And it just, again,
Right.
Something to do, even though it's remote, we are sharing this moment together. And it's not always just about work. It's something about building a team.
Those shared experiences are just invaluable.
Yeah, exactly.
Really smart.
Yeah, we have smart people thinking about those ideas.
What's your advice to other SaaS founders who are serving complex industries, maybe a little bit slow moving like healthcare?
Time heals on anything you think that you can't get out of, right? Time is the essence, so don't drag your feet, but don't get discouraged when things aren't working today or this week or this month. Time is something that could be used in your advantage by not feeling like you have to give up if things are not working as you plan. Now, on the flip side is don't let time drag either, and don't do something that maybe is not working as expected. Sometimes cutting off or adjusting things, not maybe too premature, but don't drag something on that is just not working. And maybe think about, is there a different way of doing something or adjusting something? But there is that delicate balance of not giving up on something, because some of these products, especially this, I call them like blue ocean products, where there's not a market out there and you're trying to create that market. It takes a while to do it, so don't get discouraged by it. But at the same time, get validation. Get validation, whether it's piloting or whatever, but ensure that the market is ready for your product. And even if it's a new market you're creating, just make sure that you understand that you're solving a problem that is a need. I always think a need. A want is a harder one. Wants are out there for sure, but a need is something that I believe is in some ways resilient to any downturn of a market, because a need will be needed regardless of what happens. So I always think is, how can you try to make sure that your product serves a need out there and not a want, if you want to be sustainable and have that ROI that you believe can help save your customers either their dollars or perhaps time. Both are very important.
You've definitely been doing this a while. You've seen the evolution of tech adoption in hospitals, moving from paper to digital and electronic medical records. So many transitions. What do you think healthcare is headed from a technology standpoint over the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
I've heard some interesting things out there. Healthcare adopting perhaps like robots, which
Yes.
is to think that, but to serve the need to help basically assist a provider. A provider could be a nurse or whatever, but anyone that's serving a patient directly, but do some of the low hanging fruit, lower value, still value, but activities that need to get done. And then that opens up the door for the actual provider treating the patient to do more of that. And I think that's one thing that, whether it's robots or whatever, but focusing on eliminating activities that have to get done, but they're low value tasks, and opening up the doors for the providers to be able to treat their patients better, I think is something that I've seen it happening, and I think it's going to continuously happen. But like robots would be an example. I do think that leveraging AI for some of the activities that is being done by the providers, just speed up the process, documentation, all that stuff that is required. Like good documentation is so critical, whether it's the provider or even like the cleaners. Like to me, like documentation helps ensure that you're doing the right things and repeatable right things, and be able to adjust when the quality is off. If you don't document what you're doing, it's hard to know if you're doing it right or wrong. It really is. Other than
That's good.
you see end results that happen that are more reactive. But if you want to be proactive about how to manage your patient care or to help the providers with patient care, you should be proactive. You should try to have lead indicators and metrics. And the only way you can do that is through documenting these things. And if you can leverage AI or the similar or products out there that helps you document it easier, I truly think that's already going. It's only continue that way. Is how do you kind of leverage some of these AI technologies to make them more efficient?
Oh, really good. Where can people learn more about you and about Ancilla Ventures online?
Yeah, I can be reached directly at Allen, Allen, at ancillaventures.com. If you want to email me with any questions, I'm on LinkedIn as well under Alan Cooper. Or you can go to our ReadyList website at www.readylist.com. But happy to get to know anyone that's interested in learning more.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. Learned a lot today. Super valuable. Thank you for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Thanks again, Alan, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. Thanks again, Alan, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Alan and his product ReadyList at ancillaventures.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our channel on YouTube. It's at Champion Leadership. We have full video episodes, training, shorts, outtakes, lots of resources over there for you on YouTube. And again, that's at Champion Leadership. Now, thought leaders share. Share this episode with the operator who built the whole system and still says it was a team effort. I love those people. Everyone who shares this week gets a quiet legend status. No applause, just massive results. How do you turn expertise into attention and attention into authority? Next up, Jake Isham, filmmaker turned brand strategist, joins us to break down how founders can build omnipresence through powerful digital storytelling. After helping create content generating over 1 billion views, that's billion with a B, 1 billion views, pretty awesome. Jake shares what it takes for CEOs like you and me to stand out, build trust, and lead with narrative instead of noise. What happens when a random video from community college hits 14 million views and then turns into a platform used by over 100 brands? Well, coming up 1 week from today, Elijah Casabo, co-founder of Vidovo, is going to be with us, and he shares how he built a UGC platform representing 5,000 plus creators and working with brands like Forbes and Notion. We'll talk Gen Z creator economics and what brands still don't understand about modern influence. Absolutely fantastic platform, amazing founder, and we'll talk next time. I will see you then, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.